Introducing the remarkable archetype, the dangerous gentleman. With a demeanor that commands respect and a hint of potency, he embodies strength tempered by virtue. Though his capabilities could veer towards danger, he channels his power for noble causes, serving others and safeguarding those in need. Rooted in a profound love for both God and humanity, he navigates life with discipline and purpose. In his presence, one witnesses the harmonious blend of power and benevolence, a testament to the true essence of masculinity. Step into the world of the dangerous gentleman, where strength is wielded for righteousness, and discover a captivating embodiment of honor and valor. Greetings and welcome to Storytime with the Dangerous Gentleman. Yes, I am the Dangerous Gentleman. No, I did not give myself that nickname, but I certainly did earn it. So this is a Friday episode, so this is a Storytime episode where I tell you a little bit of a story about my life and how I got to where I am and some lessons I learned along the way. On Tuesdays, it's generally more of just like an inspirational talk or some encouragement, just more of a monologue. Before we get into all of that, though, I want to just thank you all the people that have liked my content, all the people that have commented and shared it. It's been growing, or we got a little momentum going, so that's cool. Second thing I want you to do is go down in the description and check out the links to my social media, including this week. There is a special offer down there that if you go to that, if you click on that link, it'll say something about free information. It'll take you to my website. You can enter in your email and I'll send you something really cool. Something that's really helped me, something that I've put together that's been a big part of my transformation. So I hope some of you do that. And I'd like to encourage you to check out that link and it'll be worth your time. Today's going to be a little bit of a difficult one for me. I'm a big fan of the saying that says your past gets you to where you are, but it doesn't determine where you go from here. So we're going to talk about some stuff in my past that got me to where I am or got me to where I was. But in the long run, I didn't end up letting that determine my future. But it's some stuff that I could very easily be ashamed of, some stuff that I'm definitely not proud of. It was a big mess, and it took me several years to dig my way out of it. A lot of financial debt, a lot of just personal mess. But it really did get me to where I was. This is the summer when it all finally came to a head. It had been, there's some context here that I won't necessarily get into other than to say this was about 2 years after the day that I lost my kids and was dealing with some long-term consequences of that. And my wife and I's relationship was very much rocky. She had been unfaithful, and I had decided that I wanted to keep trying to work things out in order to build our family back. Whether that was the best decision in the world or not, like hindsight being 2020, probably not, but I was trying to do everything I could to get my family back as a family, as a whole unit. That wasn't going to happen because of legal reasons. And I was out of a job. I was not working for anyone else. I was trying to make a go of running my own business, and it wasn't going well. And we had lost the house that we had been living in for several years, about 5-6 years at that point. Not that we didn't lose it because we were trying to buy it. It was, we couldn't afford the rent there anymore. And so we moved. In the fall of 2015, we moved. And we're still trying to get gutted out. Like, I was picking up some side work. She was picking up some side work. We were trying to make a go of this new place. We were trying to do what we could to get our kids back. We had finally decided to make the decision to actually get some professional marriage counseling, which I wish we had done sooner, but that's just a piece of the story. And so, and around February, like, we were trying to work on getting supervised visits with the kids and a lot of stuff going on. And like, I had applied for a job in Coeur d'Alene, thought I had a good chance of getting the job. Long story short, I didn't end up getting that job. The doctor decided to go in a different direction, and he hired someone else, and so I didn't get that job. Actually, so the day, like I had interviewed for the job on Friday, and then that Sunday, I believe it was, my wife and I ended up not having anything going on, so we were just hanging around the house, and we were talking all day, just some deep conversations about some difficulties and just some really hard stuff. Like it was all just kind of hitting us. That week, we were supposed to have a family visit where it was me and her and our 2 boys. We were going to have a family counseling / visit session. It ended up getting canceled because one of my sons was sick. And so it got canceled. And it really hit my wife hard. And then that particular weekend, we were talking through all that kind of stuff. And I believe it was a Sunday where after 2 years of battling, after dealing with losing our kids and not having a whole lot of money and being broke a lot, and her dealing with a bunch of legal issues and her having, the affair that she had on me and all us having to move and work through just what seemed like an endless pile of shit. She, at that point, decided to tell me that she wanted a divorce. And it literally was like we were just talking about stuff all day. And then towards the end of the day in the evening, it was in February at one point, and she's just like, and so this is the conclusion that I've come to after all of this, is that I want a divorce and I don't want to work on it. I am unwilling to put in any kind of work, any kind of effort to try to save things or change things anymore. And it hit me like a ton of bricks because I had made a lot of sacrifices. I had done a lot of things in order to try to salvage, probably in the long run, again, looking back, hindsight being 2020, all the effort that I put in probably I should have put that effort into building a business, into me trying to restore my relationship with my family and with my kids, and me trying to make that effort rather than trying to salvage that relationship. But I had done it, and here we were. So that night, I was reeling. And so I was like, all right, okay, well, we'll talk about it more, but I'm not going to stay here tonight. She's like, oh, no, you can stay here. You can stay here. I'm like, really? You just told me you want a divorce, and now you want me to just stay here? Sleep on the couch or something? No, I didn't want to do that. So I packed up a backpack, and I called up my pastor, and I said, hey, man, this is what's going on. He said, come sleep on my couch. And so I went to sleep on my pastor's couch, and I ended up then over the next couple of days, I actually ended up going to live with my pastor. So that was February. Still really wasn't working a lot. Didn't really have any extra money or anything. I was applying for jobs and trying to get work, but now here I am out of the house. And I knew, because of the history and the past that we had, I knew that it wasn't going to be long before my wife was making bad decisions. And it didn't take long. And she started to use drugs again. And she started to sleep around. And she started to have all these casual relationships. She would deny them every single time I saw her. Like, you gotta stop doing drugs. And she'd be like, I'm not doing drugs. Andrew, I'm not doing drugs. And I knew she was. And I knew she was having sex with other guys and all that kind of stuff. And so time passed, and we would have little conversations here and there, and sometimes she'd come and talk to me about, oh, we got to get our family back, or we got to do this, that, or the other thing. But for the most part, I knew she wasn't making good decisions, and I knew in the long run that it wasn't good for her, and it wasn't good for me to be around her, but I was an addict, and I was addicted to her. So she would call me and want to talk about all these crazy things and stuff like that, how she wasn't following God anymore, and how she had all these revelations and all these wonderful thoughts. My life wasn't going too great either. I was literally sleeping in my pastor's basement, and I was starting to drink a lot. because I wasn't sleeping. I was just stressed and nervous, worried about what she was up to. It wasn't good for me to be thinking about someone else all the time like that, especially when I knew there was nothing I could do about it. And so I started to drink a lot. I went to the doctor and I got prescriptions for antidepressants. I ended up on one antidepressant and then an anti-anxiety pill and then a sleeping pill and then another antidepressant and then another antidepressant and an antipsychotic. I was drinking heavily. I was taking all these various assorted pills, and I was using a copious amount of marijuana. Anything and everything I could to keep from facing the pain that I needed to face. I was trying to cover it up with anything and everything that I could find. At that point, anything and everything I could find that was legal. And in the middle of all of, I could tell a whole bunch of stories about this time in my life, but we're going to give the broad brush, right? So February is when all that went down, and then things just kind of progressed, and I was still seeing the kids and stuff like that. And then sometime in about May, I was sitting in my pastor's basement, just hating the world, just loathing my life. And my wife calls me and she's like, she's on it. She's on one, right? Knowing what I know now, like she was high as a kite and probably on all kinds of different stuff. But when she would get that way, then she would get very talkative and she would seem like she was being very introspective, right? And so she calls me up and she says, Andrew, everyone's out to get us. You and I are the only ones that are on the same team. And so we need to get together and we need to get our kids back. It's just you and me, right? None of these people out here, none of these people that I'm spending time with have my back. None of the people that you're hanging around with have your back. Like what you're doing just isn't working. And what I'm doing just isn't working. So what we need to do is this. And she had this whole plan laid out. I'm going to come pick you up, grab your stuff, whatever you need, and we're going to go camp. And we're going to work really hard and we're going to save up our money and we're going to go and we're going to camp up in this town that was like, at the time we were like 2 hours away from where our kids lived at my sister's house. And she's like, we're going to go up and we're going to camp at this other place and we're going to go and we're going to work and we're going to get our kids back. We're going to work on visitation and we're going to build this back. And I was like, I was totally hopeless at this point. I was just like, I was on, like I said, drugs, alcohol, weed, all of it, right? I wasn't getting anywhere. I was broke, sleeping on a couch in my pastor's basement. I was also addicted to my wife. And so anything that I saw that was a chance that might lead to us, even though it was miserable, anything that might lead us back together, even though when I was around her, I was miserable, even though I knew what she was doing and I knew everything that was going on, I was like, okay, I had no other hope. And she says, all right, I'm going to come pick you up. And so I packed up a backpack and a sleeping bag and a pillow and I waited. And then I was having, the pastor, he was like, what's going on, man? He's like, well, I'm going to go camping. One of my friends I lied to him, right? I lied to him. And I said, I'm going to go camping for a little bit. I'm just going to go get some time on my own. And he pretty sure he flat out asked me, does this have anything to do with your wife? I'm like, no, it's just me. You sure? Like, yeah. Again, just flat out lying to him. So I waited and I waited and I waited. I don't know how many hours went by, 2, 3, 4 hours went by. And then finally she shows up in our van that we owned and it's just loaded with all of her stuff. And I've got a backpack, a sleeping bag and a pillow. And so I jump in and there's this other guy in the car. And he's like, hey, I won't tell you his name. And we're going to go do this thing. I was like, what does he have to do with it? Oh, no, we're just going to drive around tonight. We're going to get you guys set up with camp, and then we're going to go run and do some errands and stuff like that. Well, who that guy was, the guy that was supplying my wife with drugs. And who that guy was and those errands that we were running is that we would go up to a store, like a Rite Aid or some little place like that, and he would go in and he would steal stuff. And I need to condense this. So he would steal stuff and then he would come out. And then we zip on out to the next place. And I was like, I wonder, where's this guy getting all this money to do all this stuff? And I didn't know at the time, like later on is when I learned that what was actually going on. And at one point we pulled over somewhere kind of in this park out in the, kind of behind everything. That's when I realized that he was the drug dealer. And he's like, hey, you want some of this? And all of my resistance went out the window. This wasn't weed. This wasn't alcohol. Like, this was full-blown methamphetamines. That was the first time. And he's just like, oh, hey, here's this, and here's how you do it. And he lit the pipe. He lit the lighter and did the pipe, and I did the thing, and I inhaled and had my first hit of methamphetamines. I think that was the first one. I believe that was the first one. It was like unlike anything that I had ever experienced before. I'm not proud of it. It still makes me emotional to think about how weak I was. Like, all my life, I've grown up with the idea of hating drugs. Hating doing these things, right? My mom didn't even like us to drink alcohol, much less weed. My dad, I can count on one hand the number of times that I actually saw my dad crack a beer open, and drugs were bad on every level. But I had lost all of the hope. All of those principles, all of that foundation of who I was had been whittled away over the course of the last several years worth of pain. And I just gave in. He's like, here. There I was. I thought, what was going on in my brain was, well, if my wife is in this world and I want to restore things with my wife, then I have to be in that world too. That was part of my reasoning. I also just wanted to escape. I also wanted to just numb all of this. I had like a constant gnawing in the pit of my stomach that kept me from sleeping. I was nauseous 24 hours a day, 7 days a week because of the medications that I was on. But even without the medications, there was just this constant sense of emptiness and gnawing. And then the medications and the drugs and everything just made it worse. And the only thing that I would just drink myself to sleep. I would crush up Ambien, I think it was Ambien. I was on Ambien for sleeping, and because it didn't act fast enough, I just took it. So I would crush it up and I would snort it up my nose in order to get some sleep. Still wasn't sleeping. And then I'd wake up 3 hours later with the gnawing in the pit of my stomach and have to repeat the whole cycle again in order to get a few more hours of sleep. So there was all this pain. But now here I am. I'm making perhaps, not the dumbest, but top 10 dumbest decisions of my life. I had intended to tell a lot more of what had gone on this summer, but we're already 20 minutes in and we're just getting to that point. So it seems like this might be a good place. I'm going to leave a little bit of a cliffhanger, but it kind of, all of this led up to me doing that first hit of methamphetamines. And then the rest of that summer just went sideways. That's what led to me going to Colorado, escaping to Colorado, and that's where I got clean from the hard drugs. But I tell you that story because most people would hear that story and think, there's no way. They know me now. They hear me talk now. They see my life now, and they're like, how? Wait, what? But I was there. Trust me. And everything in my life up until that point had led me to where it was just easy for me to do drugs. It was easy for me to make that decision when it was finally presented. All of my resistance, all of that stuff, all of the years of anti-drug talk, of being against all of that, just went out the window. All of those negative feelings I harnessed towards my wife for doing drugs, here I was now. Boom. And I was doing drugs. All of it. Like the worst stuff that you can imagine. Like you name it, I tried it probably at least once. Methamphetamines, heroin, drugs, alcohol, all of it. But everything in my life led me to that point. But it also led me to the point where I made a decision to change it. That I didn't want to keep going down that road. And I'll get into more of that. Trust me, there's going to be more stories about like more of what went on that summer because it's pretty gnarly and it's pretty incredible that I made it through as unscathed as I did. But it also led me to a dramatic recommitment to my life before God. And it also shifted me in the direction that I'm going now. Not all at once, but piece by piece, little by little. So my past got me to the point where I decided that I was going to do drugs and it was going to be easy for me to do drugs. But my past didn't determine my decision from that point on to choose sobriety, to choose God again, to choose to turn my life around. Right, so it had all led up to that point, but then I had to make a decision. I came to some critical places in my life where I had to make decisions. And it wasn't one good decision. It was multiple good decisions over the course of several months and then several years. But it started with one decision. It was a whole cascade of decisions that got me to the place where I did drugs. And then it was a whole bunch of other decisions that got me out of that place of doing drugs. And it turned my life around. Do I wish that I could have gotten to where I am now without having to deal with all that stuff? Of course. I would have loved to have gotten the gains I've gotten without putting in the work I've had to put in. But it wouldn't have meant anything. It wouldn't have been worth it in the long run. The fact that I had to go through all of that means that I earned those decisions. I earned that change of direction. I earned the lessons that I learned. And did it hurt other people along the way? Yeah. Do I wish it could have not hurt other people along the way? Yeah. But you know what? And I hate this saying, but it's true. Sometimes it just is what it is. And in that situation, it was what it was. Let your past have gotten you to where you are. You can't change that. But don't let that past continue into your future and determine where you go from here. That part is up to you. That part was up to me. It was up to me, and it's up to you. Your past is not an excuse. This was a tough one for me, and I had to mentally prepare to tell all this, and so I hope you appreciate it. I hope you got something out of this. And so again, if you did, like the video, comment on the video, share the video. All right.
So if you like this content, please give it a rating, a review, and share it with your friends. Also, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about me and what I'm all about and what I can maybe do for you, check out my website at thedangerousgentleman.org. That's thedangerousgentleman.org. Thank you for listening.